Afternoon session of the ARC to order, and let me pull up my agenda. Today is April 21st, and let's see here. The only person that I see absent today is committee member Polly. Do you want to do roll call?
Absolutely, I can take care of that right now. So we have Chair Carter.
Here.
Vice Chair Blue.
Aye, here.
Thank you. Thank you. Committee Member Hunter.
Present.
Thank you. Committee Member Ostavar.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Member Polly appears to be absent. Committee Member Schmidt.
Here.
Thank you. And Committee Member Tregenza.
Here.
Great, thank you all.
Excellent. Today, city staff, we have Kim Cole, Fernanda Riveri, Jennifer Cleary, Chris Schmidt, and Sarah Ziel.
Careful, Gwen. Okay, go slow.
We are going to open the consent agenda, and we are going to ask if there's anybody of the public or the committee who would like to discuss any items on the consent agenda.
That's me.
Yep.
And of course okay. Members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, a secure service that connects you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey with a 10-second delay and Comcast 25 up to 90-second delay. Sorry, channel 25. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers listed on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. Since this meeting has begun, you will find the agenda under the Recent tab all the way at the bottom. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864. This number is toll free. You will also want to enter the webinar ID for this meeting, which is 161-914-9563. And if that first phone number doesn't work, there are others listed on the agenda. If prompted for a participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions for using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To provide public comment, use the raise your hand function in Zoom or at the bottom of the screen. At the bottom of the screen. If you are providing public comment by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters calling in by phone will be announced using the last 3 phone number digits. And if you're joining by Zoom, we will use your name typed into Zoom. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. Please turn off TV or computer speakers or go to another room while connected by phone, as background noise interferes with the broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of hands raised. The chair has designated a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting. Please stay within your time limit.
And for clarification purposes, I would like to announce that the 2 items on consent include approval of the minutes from April 7th, 2021, and the additional item is approved resolution for 832 Helen Street, architectural review permit ARP 200241 for preliminary and final architectural review of a single-story addition to an existing 1-story single-family dwelling. So if any members of the public would like to comment on either of 2 of those items, Chair Carter has requested that you have this opportunity to request the item be pulled.
And we do have 1 public commenter with their hands raised, so I will allow them to unmute themselves and begin the 3-minute timer.
Great, thank you.
Let me just share my screen. And Nancy should be able to unmute by now. And the timer is beginning now.
She's not unmuted yet.
Let me reset. If you could, you should be able to unmute yourself now. You should be able to, should have speaking preferences or privileges. So to unmute, you can click on the microphone to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can. Thanks so
I
much.
am sorry, the unmute button wouldn't show up. My name is Gary Soule, and as president of the Old Town Neighborhood Association, I'd like to request that the Helen Street item be removed from the agenda and that the public comments be allowed. The Old Town Neighborhood Association has filed an appeal of the approval. We hope that the owner will modify the roof line to a design more harmonious with the rest of the neighborhood. At that time, we will withdraw our appeal and close the issue. Thank you.
And that was our only hand raised at this time. Thank you for your comment. And again, if you're calling by phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute when called upon. And if you're joined via Zoom, you can use the raise your hand function. There is a button for that.
Thank you, Jennifer. So it looks like our item number 3, the 832 Helen approval of resolution has been pulled. And I would just like to say that this item is for the ARC to look at the proposed resolution with the proposed findings for approval, and for the ARC to verify whether the findings are reflect their findings for approval that they made at the April 7th ARC meeting when they approved the project. So that's the purpose of the item number 3, to review the findings and make any modifications if necessary. But the approval that happened on April 7th, it cannot be changed. The decision was made. The only thing that could be modified to reflect their findings on April 7th is the resolution that's presented to you today.
Great, and Fernanda, that's a great introduction. I would just like to provide a little bit of context. My recommendation is that the ARC consider approving on consent the approval of minutes, and then you can have a discussion and sort of on the Helen Street project. So I would recommend, since nobody's asked to pull the minutes, that you take a motion and second on the minutes, and then we can move to a Helen Street discussion.
Great, let's do that. We'll pull the Helen Street resolution, and is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items and just the minutes, number 2, but not number 3, the Helen Street project.
I'll second that.
Awesome. Is there any discussion about approving the minutes? Okay, roll call vote on just approving the minutes, please.
Sure, absolutely. So we have Chair Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Blue,
Aye.
and then we have Committee Member Hunter.
Abstain.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Committee Member Ostovar,
Aye.
Committee Member Schmidt. Aye. And Committee Member Tregenza.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go back to 834, 832, sorry, 832 Helen. It looks like our person that had their hand up lost connection with us. So are there any other comments about this?
I could just, I went through the letters that were
I'm
sent?
sorry, Commissioner
sorry.
Genza, we do have a member of the public that just raised their hand. There was a little bit of a delay. So let's go ahead and accept that public comment and then you can deliberate.
They are not in the meeting anymore, but I do imagine that this was a comment for the 832 Helen Street project, which I believe we will reopen for public comment after the presentation, now that it is pulled from consent. Is that correct?
So Jennifer, I don't think we have a presentation on this item. So I think it's appropriate if, and I don't see anybody with their hands raised. The person that I just saw dropped off the call. So if anybody would like to participate, maybe Jennifer, you can read into the record again how they can participate.
Will do. Instructions for joining the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone are found at isearchmonterey.org under the recent tabs. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864 toll free, then enter the webinar ID 161-914-9563. Once you are in the Zoom meeting, to raise your hand, but in Zoom, press the raise your hand button. And if you're calling by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. And there are 2 attendees right now, and one hand was just raised. So Nancy or maybe Gary Soule, I will allow you to talk.
Hi, this is Nancy Soule, and as Secretary of Old Town, I'd like to thank the board and all the efforts that people are doing to ensure that we have a good neighborhood. Our issue was one of an extreme roofline only, which includes a prominent V or butterfly shape that extends from front to back of the building, clearly showing above the canopy through to the backyard. I would like to say that I do not feel this is, that it is appropriate. Are you hearing me? I need to ask. It's not showing the timer starting. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, okay. The roof line is the only thing that Old Town neighborhood objected to. We called that a jarring roof line, and we really needed you to look at that roof line from the front of the property, at which time you would find that visible above the canopy is clearly a sharp V wedge, and that wedge extends from front to back of the property when you are at the sidewalk, and you can see clear to the back of the on the back of the property. It clearly is not something that I would find, or I think most people would find, compatible to other styles in Old Town. And I respectfully ask that you reconsider this based on the roof line itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
And I do see we did get another attendee. So one more reminder, if you're dialing in or if you're providing public comment by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand if you'd like to provide public comment. And then you can dial *6 once we allow you to talk. And so far, I still see no hands raised.
There we go.
There it is. All right, the last 3 digits, 296, I will allow you to unmute yourself. You should be able to press *6 now.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. Hi, I've got no problem sharing my name. It's April Harrison. I live on Jefferson Street, and I was one of the original writers of our Old Town Area Plan, and I know full well from the people who participated that our intention was not to make everything look identical, but to make it fit in with the block face of the block. I live 2 blocks from the 800 block of Helen, and I've walked past there. The roof line, as it is currently designed, is very jarring. As I walk up my block to the 900 block on Jefferson, that's the closest I can come to an old Monterey Italian fishing house, and it was redesigned a few years ago, added on to. The roof line remained the same. It was beautiful. It fits in with the neighborhood. So I would recommend that. That is our only objection, is that the roof line is much too modern for the block face and much too modern for the several blocks surrounding it. And I would hope that the applicant could reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And as of now, we have no more hands raised. So once again, if you're in Zoom, please use the raise your hand button if you would like to provide public comment. And I see no hands being raised at the moment.
Okay, if we have no more public comment at this time, then can we take committee member comments? Yeah, okay, so let's take committee member comments. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thanks. I appreciate everybody that's called in, and I'm actually an Old Town member and a member of that neighborhood myself. Know the area very well. You know, I'm just tasked with being a committee member here and trying to look at stuff objectively. I did look at the letters that were gathered, and I counted, you know, there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 negative. A lot of the same people wrote multiple negative comments about the roof line, and I understand their concerns. There were some positive feedback. The design is okay with us as long as it doesn't block anyone's view. It's not a strike anyway. So I've counted 4 positive letters that were gathered. So it seems about split 2/3 to 1/3 negative versus positive. I'm a fan of mid-century modern architecture, and so I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a nice design. I think it's going to enhance that neighborhood, not necessarily be a sore thumb sticking out. And especially when the architect went through his ideas about the clear story windows on that southern exposure, how that kind of collects light and bounces it off the ceiling and just kind of adds this soft light throughout that great room that includes his living room and his kitchen, that it really made sense why he's doing that type of roof line there. And it made a lot of sense to me. So, you know, I'd hate to see his dreams dashed and for him decide to pull the plug on this project and then the house just stays the way it is. And I don't think that's necessarily improving the neighborhood. So I like what he's come up with. I think it's a beautiful design. I like the pergola. I think once the landscaping comes in and the trees grow and everybody kind of gets used to it, it's not going to be, you know, jarring every time you see it. So, you know, I'd like to see us move forward with the approval as we did 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Chair Carter, can I just make one comment, because this is unusual that we're bringing back findings to you. I just want to clarify for the record that the Architectural Review Committee made its decision at the last meeting. Because we didn't quite anticipate the decision, we wanted to bring back the findings for decision to make sure they reflected your conversation. So the findings for decision are on pages 11 and 12 of your packet. Unfortunately, today you can't really reconsider your decision or change your decision. The decision, the Architectural Review Committee has already made its decision. You're simply adopting the resolution reflecting the decision you made at the last meeting. So for example, you could look at this resolution and say, that's not how we reached our conclusion. You should rewrite the finding in this way. So I did want to provide clarity on what your role is here this afternoon. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask Fernanda, Chris, or I about it.
Just a quick question, Ken. I think one of the earlier public comments was that the decision that we made 2 weeks ago was being appealed. And so I'm just wondering what the that appeal, how it affects what we're doing right now. Can we continue to have a deliberation, and should we vote on something that's under appeal when it's going to be going to the Planning Commission?
So what you're doing is certifying your approval. You're ratifying this approval and making sure that we've incorporated your findings for decision. We have received an appeal on this project, so it will be going forward no matter what to the next level. But we're trying to cement for the Planning Commission what the basis of your decision was. So once again, pages 11 and 12 of the packet, we did our best to try to take what we learned from your meeting and to incorporate that into formal findings for decision. And I know this is may seem odd to you. It doesn't happen very often that we have to bring back a resolution, or I guess I should say it happens on occasion to reflect the previous decision. But we did check with our city attorney today to confirm process and ask the question, could you change your decision tonight? Could you make a different decision? Could you require project changes? And the answer is no. Of course, the applicant, after hearing this and this adoption, will be going forward with the appeal, but they also always have the option to amend their plan and to submit an amendment to the Architecture Review Committee for consideration. But at this point, the project is approved. And what your job is to certify these findings that they represent your discussion at the last meeting.
I'd like to add, I'm sorry, just a further clarification. I was also at that meeting with the city attorney, and she did clarify that today's approval of resolution is also appealable. So the appeal period is once again would be 10 days from today's action. However, the project has already been appealed, so it's just providing more opportunity for more appeals, but it's already happened.
Can I ask a point of or a question on this? Since I was absent from the last meeting when this was discussed, my voting on this, is that appropriate or not appropriate?
It's not appropriate. I also asked the city attorney on that because the ARC is taking action that this reflects their previous decision, and you weren't at the previous meeting. It's impossible for you to make that conclusion. So you would be abstaining.
I was just wanting to kind of add or clarify as well. Generally, so right now we're making comments that support our previous decision. That's essentially what this is. We're not voting, we're just augmenting our process.
Well,
you're looking,
go ahead,
I'm sorry. Oh, you're looking at the resolution that's in your packet today and verifying whether the findings reflect what your findings were in the April 7th meeting.
And would that be, even though Ed isn't voting, he would be able to comment? Is that as a member of the panel, right?
Yes.
Great.
I have a question for Jennifer. Jennifer Fitzpatrick. I just, as you know, got my packet today because it got lost in spam. So I'm looking, I have the agenda up, field trip, call to order, consent. Where exactly is the resolution? I've got approved resolution 832 Helen Street. Then there's two supporting documents, a DOC and a PDF, and neither of them have a page 11. Could you guys help me find the pertaining documents that I'm supposed to be looking over?
I'm pulling it up right now, the agenda packet.
That'd be great,
uh,
thanks.
And I'll be able to
Look
share
at
it
it,
on
that would be
screen.
fantastic.
If you click on the approve the resolution, it gives
Yeah,
you
I
two
did.
documents, and the first one is the resolution.
Okay, but there's no, I only have, it's only 5 pages long. On at least on my computer, maybe it's just the way it's formatted.
If it was in the whole packet, it would be packet page 11, but it's not in the whole packet. It's just,
So the findings start on the second page.
Second page, okay, thank you. Findings, where it says findings, okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thanks, Chris.
And I will add, findings were basically taken right out of the staff report, which
Right.
I believe was the motion that was made.
Right, so nothing's changed.
Correct. And then so the ARC also made the motion, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the project has Old Town character.
Okay, lighting details of staff. Permit, hours of construction. Yeah, this is all just the boilerplate stuff, right? Pretty much. Okay. Yeah, well, it's not like a reflection on anything we discussed necessarily. It's just a resolution. Correct?
I guess I would have to provide a point of clarification. The findings that are on page 2, which includes findings 1, 2, 3, and 4,
Yeah,
should reflect the reasons why the Architecture Review Committee made this decision. So there's a discussion about the mid-century bungalow style, etc. If this doesn't capture why you think it's consistent with Old Town character based on your previous discussion, then you should provide additional clarification and modifications. And we can show this on the screen if that's helpful.
I'm looking at it right now. Thank you. Okay, thanks for that extra time. I just got this today because of a mix-up, but yeah, that it looks like you've taken what we discussed 2 weeks ago, reverse shed roof addition, the keeping of the existing mid-century bungalow style existing home, based on its appearance, mass, scale, proportion, setting. Yeah, so that all I think jibes with what we talked about 2 weeks ago as far as I'm concerned.
are there any other additional comments?
I think I'd add with what Patrick said. I think the old Monterey neighborhood has a diverse set of architectural designs in it. Some like those old apartment buildings that were built in the 70s are awful. But it's still there, and it represents this diverse character that the city now has. And I mean, any way to get back to the 1940s or 1950s, that ship has sailed. And if you look at the conference center, which I remember Chuck Kimsey was trying to make the point that we should, have a design which fit within an old town format, whatever that might have been. But in the overall decision, they went with a semi-modern approach. And so there's this large mix of styles that the Old Town neighborhood has. And I think it's worth accepting that as a reality, and it can be a good one. And in this particular case, I think that the house, it fits in with other styles that we talked about 2 weeks ago. And, with that, I walked on Helen back and forth, and it's of all the places in Monterey, it does have a lot of variation in the styles that are represented there. So, from my perspective, I think we should support this, and hope Planning Commission will, also look at some of the things that we've discussed in terms of their deliberations, so we can, take into account, what Old Town actually is. So that's my 2 cents.
I think that's really well put, Bob. And one other thing, I'm not sure if some of our neighbors are listening in still, but Kelly White, the architect, did bring quite a few examples of reverse shed roofs in that neighborhood. The Larkin School has a reverse shed roof. There's a couple of condos that have that same roof line. He had at least 4 or 5 examples of like, well, yeah, they say that this is in the neighborhood, but yet look at this, and there it was. So yeah, if you look around, it does exist, and I think what you're going to get from an architect homeowner is he's going to take care of that property. It's going to be landscaped beautifully. It's always going to be painted. It's going to be a showplace, and he's going to be a good neighbor to have, in my opinion. So yeah, I still, I understand it is unconventional, but it's very eclectic up in that neck of the woods. And I think, having somebody that's willing to take the time and do it right, and, using really good materials, and, he's really thinking about proportions and, weighting and stuff like that. And again, the reason for that reverse shed roof is to gather light for his great room, which is going to make such a difference in the living area of that house. So it's not just a feature like, hey, look at me, I'm an architect, and I put this crazy wing on the house. It's there really to collect light, and it does a great job of doing that, facing south and all that. So I think I've said enough.
Just to add one more point to what Patrick was saying, the angle on that butterfly roof isn't that much. It's not like it's substantially greater in some way that would stand out dramatically. So to me, it seems to fit with what the design is trying to accomplish, which is to get more light in and doing it in an aesthetically, pleasing way.
I think the three of us maybe do a good bit of talking here, and I'd like to make sure we hear from other members of the committee as well. So please chime in when you get a chance. But I did also have some comments, and I think for me, they fall into really sort of 2 categories. There's this aspect of history that I think is an undercurrent of this discussion, and what is that? And is that something that can be a living history? Is sort of a question. And that's something that on many projects I've worked with. The goal is that you're not creating some facsimile, and I really appreciated that April mentioned that herself, that their goal wasn't to make sure that things stayed exactly the same, that there was variation. However, she thinks this is jarring, and I think as a committee, we're leaning toward it not being jarring. And I think there are historic precedent. I think, to me, the fisherman's shack and this idea is very functional, and I think this has a functional aspect to it. Some of the favorite architecture, unfortunately, was removed recently, but some of the stables in the Lower Presidio have this aspect also, where some of them are moving in that direction and then have that end piece that allows the light in. So I think there's precedent for it as well, historically, here in Monterey. And the point is that we have also an applicant who is also the architect and will be the resident. And to me, that goes a long way in this being something that the people that live there are shaping and inhabiting that space with their care and passion. And so that means a lot. And it's part of a community that we need to have and do. So I think we need to try to be accommodating to this to a certain extent, that it allows for functionality of that community. Now, to me, something that matters in that functionality is sense of community and openness to your neighbors. And being very familiar with that neighborhood, I have walked it quite a bit, especially in COVID times. A lot of these structures have their doors right up close, or they have their stoops or their porches, and that makes a difference in sense of community. So if there's any caution there, I would caution the applicant in perhaps the planting. I think I saw a different a property nearby that I think had some similar planting that they've let kind of get really high, that really just closes off the front door and entry. And so having at least some sort of window into your entry, and being neighborly and being able to see and be seen and have that opportunity will make this feel a little less like you ran out of room in your back and put some of that in the front. But generally, also having seen the story polls, honestly, it seems really minor, some of the things that are being called jarring. And I think it's going to be this aspect of adding some of that eclectic nature and energy to the community, and hopefully there will be further examples. You think about this isn't like that, but in Pacific Grove, right, there's a purple house. I mean, would something like that typically get passed? But now everybody loves it and wants to repeat it, and then there becomes this character development of a neighborhood that begins to have this identity, and working with your neighbors and creating kind of more flavor to it. So I'm hopeful that this reflects that, and that that we get more comments internally here as well. Thank you.
Just a quick comment on what Priam was saying. It's what he mentioned also reminded me that it's in addition to the existing structure. So the existing structures, to a certain extent, being saved, and there's something just being built onto it, which I think also, adds to its fitting into the neighborhood. It's not like a total tear down and a rebuild. So that old fisherman's home is still there. It just has an additional structure that's, I think, very effectively being built into it.
I just would add that I think that this design, while unconventional, is still can still fit into the neighborhood, and I think that it adds character, which is what Old Town is all about. And the fact that the architect is the owner and will live there and take care of it, I think that says a lot. And that he cares and has put together a really great design and thoughtful. And that's what we want here at the end of the day. So I like it. I come from a bit of an unconventional background, being the daughter of an artist, and I appreciate things like this. So I'm excited to see it done, and I hope he ends up being a trailblazer and more people can get excited about it. I mean, I've seen homes all over the city that wouldn't traditionally fit in their neighborhoods, and then somehow they just work out and it works. So I'm hopeful that more support will come around for this. Even though there has been support, but there will be more support, even though the roof is a little bit unconventional. I think that unconventional isn't always bad. And I think sometimes a little bit of change can be good too.
I wanted to clarify also, last time I think I made some comments on hierarchy, and I had initially some concern over the trellis just being boxy looking, because that is in some of the documents of being concerned about boxy looking architecture. But I think actually some of the renderings don't give it justice because maybe there's a fisheye in the SketchUp, and it looks a bit bigger and more imposing than when you go see the story poles. And so that might just be part of it. Some of the renderings give it that aspect. I do think there is a decent amount of hierarchy in it. You can see even that extended roof is a little bit shorter, and even the material on the side of it is different from the rest of the house, which I think helps it recede. And so it provides that hierarchy in the larger, more formal historic structure, the entrance, and then that what's being called unconventional roof seems to be recessed back and is minimized to some degree. So I appreciate some of those efforts. If there's any other way in the planting and things like that to emphasize your front door and the sense of entrance and also access to the community kind of visibly, and just being very clear and knowing what your front door is, and if somebody wanted to come up and say hi, they could. That sense of community is really important. Is something that I'm very kind of cautious of in making sure that is something that I think makes up communities like this. And once, if you start to lose that sense of a porch or ability to say hi to your neighbor and check in on them, especially elderly communities. We sit on our porch all the time, and people walk by and you check in on them, even if it's just kind of saying hi. So that's the only aspect that I'd say let's really keep an eye on that and make sure you're doing that here as well, including with the planting.
Are there any other comments? Okay, then I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve 832 Helen Street ARC permit ARP-20-0241 for preliminary and final architectural review of a one-story addition to a one-story structure.
I'll second that.
Great. Is there any further discussion about that?
Can you include the findings in your motion? In the resolution? Or you don't have to read them, but can you verify that the findings in the resolution are what you are adopting tonight?
Yeah, how about we add that the previous ARC meeting findings are consistent with our current approval.
Is that okay?
Does that
So
work
what I'm
for
hearing
Linda?
is, yeah, so what I'm hearing is you're not proposing any changes to the findings presented to you tonight.
No.
Okay.
Could we say with no changes to the resolution presented?
Sure.
Okay. Does that sound okay, Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get that, Sarah?
I did. I just want to clarify on that. Do we still want to include the approval and the note that findings are consistent with current approval and there are no changes to the previous resolution? Does that sound?
I think it's the current resolution because
The
there was no
current
previous resolution.
Perfect. I just noted that right there.
I do need to make one suggested amendment that we add another whereas clause that this decision is appealable within 10 days from the date of today's decision, because we were able to clarify that with the city attorney on the appeal. So we've already received an appeal, but it's another 10 days. So I guess I just ask if the motion maker and second are amenable to that change.
Sure. Sure, Kim, I think that sounds fine.
Thanks for keeping us all on track. Okay, are we good for a roll call vote now?
We are. I just added that last note in there. So I'll go ahead and take a roll call here. Chair Carter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Bluth.
Aye.
And Committee Member Hunter is abstaining, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And then we have Committee Member Ostavar.
Aye.
Thank you. Committee Member Pauly is absent. Committee Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Thank you. And Committee Member Tregenza.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Sarah, sorry, did you get who seconded the vote?
I believe it was Tregenza. Did I get that properly?
Oh.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your participation today, and that decision is appealable within 10 days to the Planning Commission from today. I know there's already been an appeal, but you can appeal again. We don't have anything on, we can open for general public comments. I think we should probably do that, yeah? That's next on the agenda. Okay, so we'll open for general public comments. Jennifer, you want to give us direction on that?
Definitely. We encourage members of the public to join our meetings via Zoom.gov. Instructions for joining are on isearchmonterey.org under this meeting. The webinar ID to join is 161-914-9563. If you're joining by telephone, please dial 868-33-568-8864. To raise your hand once you're in Zoom, either use the raise your hand function if you're on a computer, or dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute yourself if you are on a phone. And right now I see no hands raised.
As a reminder, this is for items not on the agenda today. Okay, seeing none, we will move along. If any come in, then we'll take them. Are there any committee member comments? Nope. Okay. Informational staff reports.
Let's see. Just follow-ups to city council meetings. The presentation on the Brown Act, Conflict of Interest and Public Records Act that happened at the March 24th council meeting, and then a presentation about California's short-lived climate pollutant reduction strategy that happened at the April 6th city council meeting. At that meeting also, there was a presentation about the 2020 Healthy Eating Active Living Annual Report and approval of a letter to the State Water Resources Control Board regarding relief from condition 2 of the cease and desist order. And the only item scheduled for the next ARC meeting, May 5th, is a permit extension for 18 Dune Crest Avenue. That was a 2-story single-family dwelling.
Great.
That's it.
Okay. If nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting at 4:49.